this can't be real, can it? Like, I see people on social media, I see people everywhere kind of joking about this, but this can't be real. We got to get down to this because honestly, this could be huge for Star Wars if George Lucas does come back in some capacity to a galaxy far, far away. Does this mean that it will fix everything? Does it mean that all the ill will that has transpired over the last 12 years will be erased? Well, first we have to find out if we think this is going to be true or not, if this could be true. So where is this all coming from? You see Patrick the Hutt over on X sitting here going, George Lucas is back, Kathleen Kennedy fired, Star Wars is dead. YouTube every single day. And he's not really wrong. There is always someone talking Star Wars who thinks they have the inside knowledge. They think they have the inside scoop of what's going on with Star Wars, with Lucasfilm, with Kathy Kennedy, with Dave Filoni, with something. I like to sit back and say, look, I think this is what should happen. I think this is the best course for Star Wars, for Lucasfilm. But to sit there and say with 100% certainty that Kathy Kennedy is fired or George Lucas is coming back, I can't sit there and say with 100% certainty up until this point on what may happen. And honestly, I can't even tell you for 100% certainty if George Lucas is coming back. But let's take a look at what is being said because maybe we can ascertain what all the hoopla is about right now. As you can see, he did share a little thing from Star Wars Theory, and that is where this really is coming from. Star Wars Theory, I love his channel. Naya is a great guy. I think I would love to talk to him and just pick his brain one time. He's somebody that I've followed from his very beginning roots on YouTube, and I found his channel years ago. And I think he's a really good YouTuber, and I don't believe a lot of the hatred that he's had over the last couple months or last 6 or 7 months is warranted at all. But this is really interesting. He was having an interview with Roger Christian, who is, I guess, the guy who first created the lightsaber for George Lucas. But let's listen to what he has to say here.
But I think he's coming back. I'm pretty sure now that he's doing a series. I think that they're now bringing him into the fold, from what I hear, because there's a Star Wars live action series coming. And
that is very, very, very interesting. Because we think we know a lot of the stuff that's going on with Lucasfilm. We think that we know there's, what projects are coming. We really don't. I mean, we know that there's this Rey film that I know is probably going to start filming here within the next 4 to 5, 6 months or so, unfortunately. We know that we are getting the Mandoverse films, Grogu and the Mandalorian and Grogu. We know we're getting that. Then we have the Old Republic film, the one that's like about the first Jedi that we're supposed to be getting. But when it comes to the TV shows, besides like Skeleton Crew and The Acolyte and what Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau were doing, we don't know much else of what's going on. And Mr. Christian here may have just spilled some tea.
I've got a strong suspicion that George will have something to do with that. That's what I'm thinking is, and I might be prophesying.
Are you pulling my leg?
No. That's what I had heard and read, and I don't.
So that's what he heard. Now, to sit here and say that Roger Christian may have an in, that he may know things on the inside, that we don't know. I don't know what he knows. I don't know who he has connections to on the inside at Lucasfilm. Maybe he still talks with George Lucas on a regular basis. I don't know. You don't know. So what he's saying here could be 100% accurate. What he's saying here could be 100% false. It could all just be hearsay. It could just be speculation, like what a lot of YouTubers do in trying to build hype and more so try and find some hope and anticipation for themselves to see Star Wars get back to what it once was.
Don't know from anything apart from I'm prophesizing that might happen, because you've seen he's been very physically present there. He's been down on the sets and everything. And Dave Filoni has done such an incredible job of being George.
And I like how he sits there and he tries to kind of like save himself a little bit. He says, I'm prophesizing here. I may be prophesizing. If he does know something, he's trying to save himself now. I think he realizes I probably shouldn't have said anything if it is happening. And like I said, he's now saying I'm prophesizing. And, he's been on the set a whole bunch with a bunch of projects. Well, he was on the set early on as well with The Force Awakens. And honestly, after the sequel trilogy kind of came and went, he's been on the set a lot with the Mandoverse. He's been on the set from the beginning with The Mandalorian and through everything that's been going on there. So, yeah, he's not wrong. He's not wrong. But I think that plays a lot, that has a lot to do with him and the relationship he has with Dave Filoni, which is a very, very strong bond because of how closely they worked on the Clone Wars back in the late 2000s, the late aughts, I should say.
Bringing back everything that George.
He's. I always say, and Dave gets a lot of flack just as George did, but he is the only sort of the closest thing we have to George there. I think. I think Jon Favreau does a good job too.
But I think.
So there it is. So they do talk about Dave Filoni, and I don't want to talk too much about him, but he is a good substitute for George. Is he perfect? No, he hasn't. There's some things that I question him on. I like how everybody is essentially a Force user in his Star Wars. I don't agree with that. I do think that loses kind of some of the specialness, some of the mystique around the Jedi. But besides that, there's really not much that I disagree with what Dave Filoni has done in Star Wars, and I think he is a good substitute for George Lucas moving forward. Again, he's not perfect. We're not going to ever see another George Lucas. George Lucas is the one who created all this. Would I rather have someone like Dave Filoni running Star Wars than someone like Kathy Kennedy? Absolutely. Somebody that doesn't know Star Wars? Absolutely. Somebody that hasn't been in Star Wars in that sandbox for more than, more than 15 years at this point, like Dave Filoni has. Absolutely. I want Dave Filoni in that role. But if we could get George back, if George is coming back, why not? That should be something that is celebrated, whether you're a Disney Star Wars fan, whether you're a non-Disney or a Star Wars fan that doesn't like what Disney did. This should be celebrated. This should be exciting. Look, you may not like the prequels. You may like the prequels. We may love the sequels. You may hate the sequels. The one thing that a lot of us can hang our hat on is the original trilogy is great. And that is something that was George Lucas's. His ideas, his vision for Star Wars is what got us all into Star Wars. Plain and simple. Even with what happened in the Disney era of Star Wars, it was George's vision that got those people into Star Wars. So to have that man back in the fold, creating, guiding a new show would be phenomenal. Why would that not be why would that not be a good thing? I think that would be phenomenal. And I think we should all be excited about that. Is this absolute certainty that it's happening? No. But I wouldn't be surprised if this was kind of like, let's gauge a little of how the fans may react to this. I think maybe Roger Christian here may know a little something, and maybe even George was like, hey, since you're going to be on Star Wars Theory, who has the biggest Star Wars channel on YouTube, who has the biggest Star Wars following on social media, just kind of slip some way that I might come back. And let's see how the fans react and see if it's worth me coming back. I wouldn't put it past George Lucas doing something like that. I wouldn't. George thinks 10 steps ahead. George thinks 15 steps ahead. He understands how things work. And, with how upset and disappointed he was and how his prequels were received, I wouldn't be surprised if he wanted to just test the waters before making a huge commitment and coming back in some capacity for a show or a limited series or what have you. I think this is great. I don't see the downfall in this happening. Maybe not from George Lucas' standpoint, maybe from Disney's standpoint, but let me know, what do you think? Do you think that it's possible that George Lucas could come back to Star Wars? Honestly, he's not going to own Star Wars, but he would come back and have some more creative control over a show, maybe a showrunner, director, a writer. He could have some role like that. What do you think is happening? Do you think this is accurate at all? Do you think what this man, Roger Christian, who created the first lightsaber for Star Wars, is saying is accurate or not. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. With all that said, I'll catch you all later.